Okay, if you haven't watched the first episode, which is the decontamination part, go watch that first because you're going to want to prepare the car for this next group of steps that's rather complicated. So you want to decontaminate, remove things from the surface, get the paint removed from as much protection and contamination as you possibly can. So go watch that video. We've broken that down on what products you need and how you need to do that. So I'm going to break this into different sections, and again, this is going to be a little bit different than, or a lot different than my normal polishing series. We're going to break this down step by step by step. I'm going to break it into, I think, 5 different segments here of taping, and then types of products you'll need, and then step by step through the polishing part. So the first thing we need to do is tape. Tape and prep, we'll call it. And so we're preparing to polish the car. Many people would skip this whole process. This is where if you're a professional detailer, this is where the money's made. This is where the expertise comes in. But I promise you can do this. I can show you how to do it. If you follow this process, you might not be great at it, but it's not as complicated as you might think if you have the right products and you have the right step-by-step process. So I'm going to kind of help you through doing it the way that I do it, which is pretty similar to the way most professionals do it. So the products you need to tape, and I'm going to simplify this down. I have a lot of extra stuff here in this crazy garage that I have. I'm going to break it down to the things I think you absolutely want. There's some luxury items in here that I'm going to show you, but these are the things that you'll want to tape the car and prepare the car and prep it. So I have 2 types of tape. 3M poly, or precision poly, isn't that what this stuff is called? 3M, yeah, precision poly tape. This one's stretchable, flexible, thicker. We have a 2-inch and like somewhere between 3/4 and 1 inch. Let's call it 1 inch. Then we have the 3M Precision, which is thinner, not flexible. This is my favorite tape, so if you had to have just one, I would get this stuff. This, I think, is actually more expensive, even though this appears more expensive. But 2-inch and 1 inch. So here's the difference. So let's call it 3/4 of an inch. They just don't make this in the same size as this. Otherwise, we do it the same size. I also have in my cabinet, I have like 1/4 inch stripes or really thin 1/4 inch rolls. But for this car, I don't see anything you'd need a 1/4 inch in most cars. It's very rare that you would need that. Sometimes you do it on like expansion joints on the roof line and stuff like that. So that's the tape. You need Kart Pro Eraser. So generally, if you're doing this in your driveway or your garage, you're going to end up with some dust and stuff. In my case, you saw me, I deconned it at my house. I drove it over here, and so I made sure it was sunny and nice, and the roads were pretty clean. But there's still going to be some dust and stuff on the car because it's been sitting here for a couple of days. And so I'm going to use, what I use these generally is the waterless wash for waterless washing, but I'm going to use Kart Pro Eraser. And I'm going to use the Pluffle towels, which we call them the waterless wash towel in the store. So you'll probably need 5 or 6 of these to prepare the surface. So a gallon of eraser, Press-All version 1.3 bottle is what you want. That's what we need to prepare it. Also, it's not bad to clean it up and get whatever last little bit of stuff off the car if there's anything left. From our contamination part. So it's not a terrible thing. Even if you went right to polishing, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to do a quick eraser wipe down. Then we'll need some sort of adhesive remover because I'm going to debadge. Almost every car I'm going to debadge. I've already taken a couple of the badges off. I'll show you how I do badge removal. This one's super easy because it's brand new and the badges aren't on there they're not bonded very well to the paint. So we'll be able to use our fingernail. But Kosh, how are we saying it? I've already forgotten. It's not Cook, it's Kosh Chemi Ulex, EU. We should have this in the store in the next few weeks. This smells like nail polish remover, so it's probably a It's some sort of solvent-based adhesive and stain remover. Whatever it is, it's freaking amazing. Way better than Carpo Tar-X for doing heavier stuff like emblems. You'll see it'll melt away the sticky 3M adhesive stuff. Just a thing of shop towels, Milwaukee cordless heat gun, and I like to put an XC, a high output battery on it, an 8.0 battery, so it lasts a lot longer because this will chew through batteries. And then generally, you could use fishing line, but what I'm using, and we have this tool in the store, it's called the Skin Wedge. If you're not familiar, you want one. Think of it as being your thumbnail, but it's metal. And yes, I'm gonna go metal, but what I'll do is I won't let the metal touch the paint. I'll just I'll heat up the badge and then lift it up. So these are the products that you need. I have this in the store, this in the store, this coming shortly to the store. I have this tape. So I've curated all this stuff from all these different companies, and this is, as of right now, what I know to be the best for this process. So let's get into it. So I don't think you can tape too much. Other than it's a waste of money and a waste of time. But you know, if it's not being polished, can't hurt to tape it, is the way I think about it. But I also want to think about things that, you know, again, I don't want to waste a bunch of time, waste a bunch of money, waste a bunch of tape. But one thing you certainly want to tape are your headlights. And the reason for that is headlights are different than taillights. So headlights have a UV type or a UV protectant that's attached or in the, I guess, the top of the clear coat that they put on the plastic lenses. So if you polish them, it will prematurely fail. And so just to be safe, I know you don't have to tape your whole headlight, but just to be safe, I tape the whole thing. So black trim. Black trim, I bet you could get away with. This is a pretty gloss, like it's like a semi-gloss black trim. You could probably get away with not taping this, but it's so darn nice. I don't want the chance of, it's not that the polish is really gonna mess it up. It's just that it could, you know, it could either shine it up more than I'd want, or, you know, if it is porous. Of course, if this were that normal porous plastic that you have on most cars, then you would certainly want to tape it because you don't want to get the polish stuck in there and have it turn white. And so I'm going to tape it on this car, even though, again, you could probably get away with not doing it. I just don't think it's that much of a, it's not that much of a cost, doesn't take that much time, and I don't think will hurt us to tape off. So I'm going to tape off the side camera here, and then I'm going to tape off the entire black trim as well as the black trim around the mirror in order to ensure we don't mess anything up. I don't always cover everything, but something like this, it's almost just easier just to cover the whole thing and be done with it. And think about this, you're gonna rip this tape off, so if it isn't pretty, as long as it gets the job done, I think that's all you need. Now, I'm going to polish the glass. We'll talk about that later on in the video. So I'm gonna tape both sides, both the paint side and the glass side on this car. Now, I know that most of you aren't going to have a lift, but I do, and I'm using it, so tough luck. So again, I'm not being particularly precise, just close enough to not jack up the trim. The other thing is door jambs. I'm going to polish these, at least clean them well. And so I'm going to tape this up. A lot of cars you can just pop it off, but this is a sticker. It's stuck on there, so that plan backfired on me. So remember, tail lights, I don't find have the same UV protection as headlights, so they're okay to polish. I'm not sure about the front turn signal lights down in the front daytime running lights down at the bottom. I did tape the rear, the little plastic thing, even though this will likely be coming off the car for an aftermarket version. And I don't think I need to worry about taping this. It should be okay. It is matte, so you know what, I am going to tape it. So there's not much to tape on this car. Tape anything that's black that you don't want to be shinier than it already is. Tape anything that's black plastic that's porous, and tape anything that is like this is black porous plastic. You want to tape stuff like that, and make sure you tape off the headlights. That's important. So let's go to remove some badges, show you how to do that. So I've already removed the Tesla badge. I'm sorry I couldn't wait on camera. I was worried that there would be some sort of location hole. I don't like to have badges on cars generally if I can help it. So I am going to pull this dual motor off. Certainly there's no real purpose to this. I don't care if people know if I have a dual motor or not. I did find a little scratch here behind the, looks like it'll come off in polishing behind the license plate. So that we saw us took the plate frame off so we could do full decontamination. But let's do the normal process again. You probably on most cars will need some fishing line. I'm just going to heat it up, and I'm going to take the skin wedge. Again, you want to be careful with this because this is metal. You could, if you felt more comfortable, you could use a plastic one. Well, that was easy. I think I may have pried on that with my finger before. You just heat it up a little bit. Heating helps. Looks like this is mostly going to come right off. Yeah, as you can see, a lot of newer cars, stuff comes right off. Jeez. So for all you Tesla nerds out there, and help you out here, badges aren't cool. Everybody knows what it is. You don't need a badge. Badges are about as cool as wraps are. Everybody keeps telling me I'm a nerd though, Mike. I don't know about that. You think I'm a nerd?
Maybe.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Nerds can't do squats or throw spirals. Hit home runs. I'd keep going if you'd like.
That's the standard.
It ain't high school anymore. Well, I mean, so I'm just gonna get off whatever I can here before I put some Ulex on there, and the Ulex is gonna just melt this stuff right off. It's freaking awesome. Ulex works so well, I was a little worried about it was gonna melt the paint off. No, but it didn't melt the paint off of the Tesla badge area. I figured since I don't care about this car as much as my other cars that this would be a good test dummy on the Ulex on the paint. You like my B16A2 stand over there? I'll just throw that on the floor. We'll clean it up in a second. A little workbench. Nerds don't have B16s sitting there where they put their Ulex bottle on there. I thought I was supposed to keep this instructional. Can't help myself. Just put a little Ulex on. Let it sit for a second. Everybody starts crying about how bad it smells. Oh, room smells. I think it smells great. Because this stuff is kind of thick, it takes a couple of passes to get it underneath it. You got to figure out a little bit better dispensing mechanism. Look at that. Normally I'm having to use my thumbnail and scratching the crap out of the paint to get these off. Okay, so that's removed, and then polishing will clean it up. You could walk around the car either using Carbotarex, which you have in the store, or this Ulex. You could, if you had some residue in some areas of the car, you would use something like this to wipe off sticky stuff. A lot of new cars will have sticky crap all over them. You can use it on the glass, you can use it on the paint and all of that. So let's go get the surface prepped for polishing. Okay, there's a couple of ways to do this prep step. One, you could just clean the whole car. If you know you're going to roll through polishing in short order, you could just clean the whole thing and be done with it. Another way to do it, especially if you're out in a driveway, I would clean it by panel. So I'm going to polish the hood and the front clip. So I'm going to clean this area and prep it, and then I'll come back and do the doors on their own and the mirrors and the roof and all that stuff separately. But for in this particular case, I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to just clean the whole car and get it ready to go. So CarPro Eraser, non-diluted. You could use isopropyl alcohol, say use it like 3 to 1, something like that. I'm going to shake it up. Always shake your chemicals. I learned that from my friend Larry Cosilla. I'm going to spray down half the hood, half the fender, and we'll just do the front clip here. I'm going to have 2 towels. So the first wipe, because I did drive it here, I don't want to add scratching if I can help it, even though Eraser isn't a particularly good lubricant. I'm going to do the first wipe very gently, just to pick up any dirt, especially down here. And it's still nothing. And I'll take my second towel and clean it up. So this will pull off again, this is a luxury step, but this will pull off any leftover clay lube or anything like that, the Nanoskin Glide, or any residue left over, just to give us a clean surface for polishing, but not 100% necessary. You could tape the wiper blade arms. I'm not going to, I'll just be careful around there. Take my towel, since I had it in fourths, flip it over. So I have 2 new fresh sides. Do my initial gentle wipe. Now, if the car was really dirty, you'd want to clean it properly. But it's just got a little surface dust on it from sitting here for a few days and driving over here. All right, so the car's prepped. Let's talk about products that we need for polishing. Okay, all this leading up to this is the easy part. Now it gets a little more complicated, so I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible. So let's talk pads, then polishes, then towels. Then we'll get into machines. So pads, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of pads in my cabinet. I feel like I can get anything done with those. I'm not a rotary polisher. I just don't do that. I'm sure you can do things more efficiently at times, but this car here certainly won't need a rotary. So these 5 pad types are, again, sort of the luxury. They have all these different sizes. There's one more size I'm not showing you here, but to have all these, you could get pretty much anything done and perform any kind of test spot and finish the job. But if you want to simplify it even further, pad choice number 1, the pad I use more than anything is Rupes Yellow. These are the newest yellow pads. Figures I'm out of stock on the 5-inch, and this is exactly what I need for this car, I'm pretty sure. But yellow 5-inch is they call it a fine polishing pad. This can also be sort of from medium to finishing all the way through. And so you have 5-inch, 3-inch, 1-inch. They also make a 2-inch. I don't use 2-inch very often at all. And so I think you want 6 5-inch, 6 3-inch, 6 1-inch, and you certainly want to have that, or maybe even 12, just depending on how often you're polishing. So this pad we're going to test out first, and we're going to see how it goes. The second most important pad in my arsenal is the microfiber cutting version, and Meguiar's, I think, still makes the best microfiber cutting pad. And so you have 5-inch, 3-inch, and then they don't make a 1-inch, and so you could either punch out 1-inch. My buddies at KXK make a punch if you wanted to punch out and cut out your own 1-inch pads. But Lake Country makes a 1-inch microfiber cutting pad, which is part of their HDO line that works quite well. So 5-inch, 3-inch, 1-inch, and again, I think you want 6 of each of those in your cabinet. We may end up using that on this paint. We're going to find out. My third, and I think you need this pad, is the white pad. This is what they call ultrafine polishing. Rupes did change the compound of the pads, and so I think we're going to find ourselves using the white pads more often than we have in the past. So the yellow got a tiny bit more aggressive. The white got a tiny bit, I think, a tiny bit more aggressive as well versus the previous foam. It's just a different foam structure. And so same thing, 6, 6, and 6. And so in 5-inch, 3-inch, 1-inch. Then the luxury pads. Some paints just respond better to these. This is the cutting version, the coarse version or aggressive version of a wool pad. Wool, the advantage of it has a little less. It puts in a little less heat to the paint than a microfiber cutting pad would. But this would be equivalent or very close to the same cutting amount of cutting as the Meguiar's microfiber cutting pad. I think I have 6 of each of these sizes in my cabinet as well. 1-inch, 3-inch. 1-inch, 3-inch, and 5-inch, and then the medium wool as well. Again, these are ones that you would buy as you get more experienced, but I think if you start with these two, yellow and then Meguiar's microfiber cutting pad, you can get pretty much anything done. It just may not be quite as good as if you had all of this other stuff. So those are our pads. We'll show you how to prime those in a minute. Then polishes. These are the 4 polishes I have in my cabinet. I have Ultra Aggressive, which is a solvent-based Meguiar's M101. This is, as you get more experienced, you can use this polish. Still not too bad. This does dust a lot, smells real bad, and seems like it's going to kill you. So know that this is your most aggressive. Then Cut Max. Cut Max has none of the negative aspects that 101 has. It doesn't dust. It's actually pretty thin, and so it's easy to work with. But Cut Max is a good, sort of more aggressive. They call it 6 out of 6 on a cut scale. So I use that sometimes. This is my favorite compound for doing correction. So when we say compounds, we're assuming that we're going to be doing more cutting or removing more scratches and more defects. Jescar Correction Compound, amazing. This is like the #1 polish you want to buy. That and Sonex Perfect Finish. So I use this for one-stepping, meaning I'm not going to compound and polish, but if I need a little bit of cutting and I want it to finish nicely, Sonex Cut Max. So these are the 4 polishes that I recommend everybody have. Start with these 2. So if you were going to start with these 2 pads, start with these 2 polishes, and then you can add Cut Max and M101 in the future. We will be checking the surface as well, so depending on how aggressive we need to be, we're going to be using CarPro Eraser and Panel Wipe from G-Technic. Panel Wipe is considerably more aggressive. Again, I think Panel Wipe is a luxury, but I use it quite often when I'm polishing, so those are 2 chemicals that I think you need. And then depending on the paint, sometimes I'll use the Pluffle, the really, really soft towel, but most of the time, if I can help it, I use these yellow car wash towels from the Rag Company. We have these in the store. I love these towels. They're inexpensive, but they're super soft and they work really, really well. So I think for the Tesla, we're probably going to be fine with this. Sometimes, again, really finicky, really soft paint, or sometimes really, really hard paint, these aren't soft enough, so you need something a little bit softer. So let's talk polishers. Okay, the most important tool is none of this stuff does anything without the polisher. So I'm going to take you through your progression, what I think you buy and when. And don't get cheap here on me. Stop buying this Chinese knockoff crap. You just bought a $70, $80, $100, $150,000 Tesla. So stop being a nerd and buy something good. You bought a good, what would appear to be a good car. We're going to find out when I get into paint here. And so stop being cheap, buy the real thing. So step one, polisher number one. You could do the whole car with this. You just wouldn't be able to get all the way up to all the edges perfectly. But your first polisher is the $440, I think it's $440, $450, something like that. LHR 15 Mark III from Rupes. This is polish machine numero uno, the one you'll use the most. This is the one that I always recommend everybody get first. So buy this first. Second machine, because I like the Flex version better, is the Flex XFE 7. No. What's this thing called? XFE 7-12, 12 millimeter orbit. The previous one has a 15 millimeter orbit. Don't get hung up on needing the LHR 21. That's an ultimate luxury. I don't even have one in my cabinet. I never use it because the LHR 15 has plenty of juice. I actually like this Flex better than the Rupes. I think it has a little more oomph, and I like how the speed control is up above the power cord. And so Flex XFE 7 is machine number 2. That's the second machine you buy. The combination of these two, you just added a bunch of areas that you couldn't get to with the 5-inch that you can now knock out with the 3-inch. You'll find that some cars you'll be doing tons of area with the 3-inch. Third machine is the Rupes Hybrid Nano, the Rupes Nano it's called, the Nano long neck. This is the third machine. So these are the three workhorses. These are the three machines that I would buy if I had a budget in mind, knowing that this is going to cost $1,000 or so to get these three. But these are the three machines you would have. I have an extension on here right now, but you always buy I'd always buy the Nano in a kit. It's the best value. And so LHR 15 Mark III, XFE 7 from Flex, Rupes Nano. Then the luxury machines, which you'll probably see me use on this. My fourth machine that I would buy if I were you, again, I've thought about this a lot, would be the XFE 15. So this is a 15 millimeter orbit cordless flex machine. These are the best cordless polishers on the planet. This is a dual action polisher, meaning that you can tell because it spins freely. It's not driven by a gear set. It's driven by the counterweight and counterweight assembly, and so it moves in a circle and moves in a random pattern, and so you can always tell a machine if it free spins, then it's a dual action polisher. I like dual action machines better. I think once you get good at them, I think it's the best type of machine. The fifth machine that you would get would be the what is this thing? The PXE80. This is nice because you can switch between 3-inch and 1-inch pads. So a lot of people would have the question, say, well, wouldn't I rather have the XFE than have the Nano? I prefer the Nano. I just think it does better. The head is a lot smaller, so the whole point of the Nano is to get into tight areas, and so I use the Nano a lot more. Then if you have the power, if you have the air compressor, you need a really big air compressor. This draws right around 12 CFM, is the LHR 15. This is the pneumatic version. So this sucker has a 15 millimeter orbit in a air-driven tool. This thing's super smooth and amazing. It's actually pretty inexpensive. It's $260, but it's something that you can't just use a little household air compressor. You need a really stout machine. And then the last machine is ultimate luxury. You bought this, you bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the 7th machine you buy, and this is a short neck. It's just nice to have 2 Nanos laying around if you can swing it. But we're talking $3,000 worth of machines here to do it this way. So those are the polishers that we need. Let's talk lastly about some other accessories that you would need to polish. Okay, final accessories. Some of these are necessities, some of these are a luxury. Absolute necessity is the Rupes claw tool for brushing out pads, agitating a microfiber cutting pad, or brushing off your foam pad, and then also spreading. So this is a genius tool. I usually keep a couple of these around when I'm polishing, but you need at least one of them. I think they're like 18 or 19 bucks, something like that. You have to have one of these. You need one of these. And you're going to need some sort of light. So I'm going to kind of go through the ranking of lights. I think these are the lights that I'm going to use on this car, but if you have to have one light, I think you get, this is the Sunmatch 3. And so Sunmatch 3 has a top light, has a sort of flashlight, and then has a super high quality LED, color transitioning LED. It goes from 2500 to 6500 Kelvin by simply holding down the button, and so you can change the color temp by holding it down, and it indicates on the back via a light. And then you have a low output and high output mode, and this is what I think most people will need this at a minimum. So you have this light. My second choice of light would be to have the little mini match. So this is the same idea, super high quality LED, has a magnetic base, so you can attach it to a cart or something like that while you're working around the car. You can work with it by hand here, but these two, you could certainly get away with just using this light. These two together is nice to have because maybe you have one on a stand somewhere or attached to your refrigerator nearby or something like that, and you work with the hand light. But those two would be the necessities. And then you have some luxuries. They also have a pen light. Sometimes the sun match, I don't have it handy, so I always have the pen light in my pocket. So I usually have this is the, which one is this? The color match. What's this thing? Match Pen R, I think this one is called. And so this one does have a couple of different color modes and has the ability to change the light pattern. So it has, I think, 2500 and 6500 Kelvin are the two color temps. And then this is a rechargeable light. So I usually have that in my pocket. And then I'll also have a Phoenix light sitting around somewhere. This is the, we call this the dream killer or whatever. So having this Phoenix light is another luxury. This I like having mainly because this is like my flashlight of choice if I'm, need something if the power goes out or something like that. And then finally on this car, I'm likely going to set up the big boy. Which one is this? This is the 8. Forget which one. Yeah, this is the Multi-Match 8. And so if you really get into it, you can start buying a bunch of these, start mounting them to the wall and stuff like that. But I have the Scan Grip tripod and the Multi-Match 8, which I'm going to set up on the stand because this car is really hard to see. We'll probably do some polishing without the lights on. Then some other things that I think you'll want is some sort of power cord, some sort of extension cord. And so this is a Pro Lock cord that we offer in black and light blue. Pro Lock cord meaning that when you plug something in here, it locks in place. And then if you really get into it, you can start doing stuff like the Pro Lock. You can see how this works, so it locks in. So as you're yanking your power cord all over the place, you're not hitting anything. But now you can turn it into the octopus, which turns it into 3. So if you only had one, I of course have easy coil Cox hose reels here, or Cox power cord reels that are really awesome. But again, I'm trying to get you back to the basics here. I want you to know what we got, what I'm using here, and that's something that could come in really handy. If you have the 3 polishers, you can have 3 different things plugged in. The other thing you'll see me using is the Prevost full fluid head swiveling couplers. We'll be using these when we do the luxury machine, which is our pneumatic polisher, the 3-inch pneumatic. I find myself haven't been using this as much, but again, you'll need a very stout air compressor for this. Last couple of things you're going to need, which is super helpful. You could use the brush to brush out your pad and just change them out more often. If you're on a really strict budget, you could just wash out your pads in between. But in a perfect world, you'd have half a dozen pads, and you'd have some tools and a little air compressor to blow out your stuff. And so in my case, I'm going to be pretty much exclusively using the Tornador. I don't have this in the store yet, but you can get it on Amazon. Just look up Tornador, and this has a pattern, or has a little tip inside of there that sprays or directs the air in a random fashion, so it tends to blow out your pad a little bit better. You can get away with the traditional type blowgun, but having a little air compressor, or a big air compressor if you're lucky, having a big air compressor with a Prevost type coupler is a real luxury to have. So as you can see, polishing is where it gets more intensive, both money-wise and skill-wise. And so I think I kind of showed you, we've broken this down at thesussgarage.com to help you understand what you might need, both essential and aspirationally. And I need to do a better job. I don't know if it's on our short list to start doing more videos like this, where we break it down and simplify it and tell you what you need, rather than showing you everything you can do, showing you what you need so you can at least get started somewhere. So let's get started with setting up our machine and talking about a test spot. All right, so here's where it starts to get a bit more complicated. I'm going to try to break this down as much as I can. So step one, get your machine ready. So we're going to prime our pad. And we're going to perform what we call a test spot. Test. It's harder to say when you're thinking about it. A test spot. Lock in. Don't be alarmed. I modified, I don't know that I recommend it, but I modified my LHR-15 to have a shorter power cord because of my setup here. But we're going to start with, you generally want to start with least aggressive and work your way down, because who knows what's going to work. So we're going to get our pad nice and lined up. Take your new LHR, put a black line on it. The reason you do that is so you can make sure that you can see the pad rotating. We're going to talk about pad flatness and stuff like that as we get into this. I generally have my tool here close by. Even though it's a new pad, I'll generally just scrub it just to make sure there's nothing on it. Then I'm going to take my polish. We're going to start with least aggressive. Even though I have a white pad and I could go a little bit more, I could go more conservatively. I'm going to need at least this. I think this combo, and we're probably going to have to compound this as well. Let's make sure. Yeah, we got our cap off. So there's two ways to prime, and depending on what panel I'm on which I prefer. On this big flat panel on the hood, I prefer to prime on the fly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 dots. So when I say prime on the fly, I put 4 dots. Now don't get crazy with polish. You don't want stuff flinging everywhere. More does not equal better. More just equals bigger mess. So let's pull a little more slack out. Get used to taking your cord, putting it over your shoulder. In this case, I'll probably put it over my opposite shoulder, keep it off the paint. I'm going to work on, this is going to be my test area right here. And so I'm going to take, and just kind of make sure it doesn't fling around. Speed 2. Checked. Still need a little more coverage. And so I could do it again, or I could just kind of do the other version of priming, which is, we'll call it manual priming, where I find that foam priming is not nearly as important as priming microfiber. So I've taken my light, I have this light here, I come back, I'm inspecting the paint. It's really, really good, actually. It's really great shape. We really need this 2500 Kelvin light to even see anything. So I'm going to start on speed 3, lock it in, lock it in, come up to speed 4. I'm going to spread it around. Before I do that, let me open this hood up. So you want to be careful. There's a lot to talk about here, but you want to be careful, especially with the panel gaps on a Tesla, that you aren't driving the pad into the edge, the other edge. And so what I'm going to do is take, what you could do is you could take your tape, just take your roll of tape, which I might end up doing, just stick it on here. That'll keep it open. Or if you have something fancy like this, you could set it up like that. So I'm going to do this test spot, and then we'll talk more about how do you do this afterward. I'm looking to see what happened, and so I'm finding a spot with the light so I can see the the light bulb, if you will, and I'm kind of following that, but looking through that and looking at the paint. That's going to do the job. Okay, so I kind of knew that would work, and so that's what we're going to end up doing is yellow pad. It stinks. I'm going to have to wash out my pads because I only have 2 of them. We're out of stock. So what I would have done next, if that didn't work, I would have gotten a microfiber pad. So I would have gotten one of these, and I would have gone to my next step down, which would have been, so more aggressive pad, more aggressive polish. The other thing I could have tried is I could have tried more aggressive polish on the yellow pad. But generally, just keeping this simple. If you wanted to get a good result and you weren't too concerned about getting fancy lights out and looking at every scratch and every crack and crevice, start with this, finish with this, right? So what you would do if you're starting simply, try a test panel, do this, do 4 passes, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. Notice I did most of my passes left to right, but generally speaking, when you're starting out, the easiest thing to remember is to go left to right, up and down. That's called a crosshatch. So you go left to right 1 time, up and down 1 time, left to right 1 time, up and down 1 time. So that'd be 4 passes. Could be a good frame of reference for you to start out with. And so perfect finish with yellow pad and Jescar correction compound with microfiber cutting pad. If you did that 2-step combo on almost every car, you're going to get a really great result. It might not be perfect, but you're going to get a really good result. Then you can start playing with some other stuff as you get more adept and more used to polishing. So I'm lucky in that corrected it out really well. Again, this is a white car, so I'm not super concerned with chasing every possible thing, but you're gonna have a really hard time. I mean, that's darn near perfect. So if you can get away with it, you don't want to compound the car if you can help it. So let me do a little bit more. So on foam pads, I'll generally just brush it out. You could also do it this way. Put a little more polish on. So I'm going 1, 2. That's all you need. You don't need any more. So generally speaking, I'll do a test spot and then I'll do the spot next to that and just check my work and see if that's getting me the result that I'm hoping for. And the result may not be perfection. In my case, it usually is as good as I can get it. This paint is really, really hard to see. Okay. So now let's talk about the details. Let's do it over here so I don't mess up what I just fixed. So first, arm speed. How fast do you want to go? Now, when I first started, and I don't do this as much anymore, I have to remind myself when I'm on camera, but when I first started polishing, I'd always be sure to count how many passes, and I do 4 every single time, and I'd always be sure to, to manage my arm speed, because your natural tendency is to want to move the stuff around. You want to move the polish around, you want to move it around as quickly as possible, to get a result. Well, keep in mind, what this is doing is this pad with your liquid, there's little pieces of let's call it sand in there that is abrading, or it's an abrasive on the surface and it's breaking down the clear coat. It's removing paint in order to correct it, to fix it, to flatten it out. You're removing a minimal amount of paint, especially since you're using a dual action polisher. So you needed to give it time to work. Not too much time, but some time. And so manage arm speed. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Arm speed and how you're making passes. Again, it's not imperative that you go this way and this way. You could go left to right if you're more comfortable, go left to right forever. It also depends on the panel. So here I go. I'm going to set my pad down and I'm going to manage my arm speed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, switch. So you can kind of keep that cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come back down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I already did that. You get the idea. Nice. You need to give the polish an opportunity to do what it does. So arm speed is first. Second is pad flatness, and this is something I struggle with for a really long time. Credit Todd Cooperrider to teaching me how to do this properly. I didn't even notice it, in the first 10 years of polishing. But you want the pad to be flat, because if it's not flat, then only one section is actually doing any work. And so in order to do that, what I found the most successful, the way I got it out of my head, because I thought, man, this thing is as flat as can be. And the more you think about making it flat, the less flat it will be. And so the way to do it is to keep the weight on your lead hand. This hand is just a guide. And so, in fact, I could just get rid of my guide hand and polish like this. And so this just dried. You don't want to do this. You want it to be flat. So I'm just guiding with this. And I'm pushing down on the pad here. So you want to keep the pad flat. Now, it gets tricky when you're coming into your hood here that's curved. And so you think about scooping it. So I'm coming as flat as I can be, and I'm just, I'm kind of tilting as the machine is moving. And so you have to do that with different contours, different areas. Be careful with peaks. This is where paint is always thinnest, on peaks of especially sharp panels. You always want to make sure that you're being mindful of that. So pad flatness is important. So first, arm speed. Second, pad flatness. Third is going to be dealing with edges. So as I come up to an edge. So we'll grab the camera here and show you this, but when I come up to an edge, if you think about this logically, if you look at the pad, notice the pad is, and this is to make sure you don't blow through and mess things up, but there's a sort of a fudge factor on the pad here so that you don't damage things or burn through paint. But if you think about this logically, the only thing that's correcting, the only part of the pad that's doing any work is anything that's in line with the backing plate. And so as you're coming up to an edge, you don't want to roll over the edge, because now you're missing this part of the edge, and you're only hitting this part, and again, this is the thinnest part of the surface. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I get this part of the edge, and I don't burn through that part. So I don't want to miss. And so if you think about it, if I come over and roll over, I'm hitting this part, but I'm missing. The pad will scoop or cup and miss the whole edge. And so what I want to do, and you'll see it under high speed, is I want the pad to go over the edge, but I want the backing plate to come right up and butt right up to the edge of the termination of the edge, the end of the edge. And so when my machine is spinning, you can see it. You can't even see the outside of the pad. You can see the backing plate, the inside. And so when I'm doing my edge work, I'm coming up here, I'm scooping up into it, and then you can see my pad's not spinning. So I'm coming up to my edge and I'm stopping the pad. So I'm stopping the pad, you can see it. You know, there's a dark yellow and a light yellow. You bring the dark yellow right up to the edge. This gets even trickier because now I'm scooped and the pad has not stopped spinning. It's still oscillating, still moving left to right, if you will, but it stops spinning. And so you're trying to manage all these things, and that I'm coming up in here. I don't want to dig into this part. I don't want to burn this part. Again, you don't have to overthink this if you're just starting out, but if you really want to work on this, start looking at the backing plate and looking at the pad that's touching the backing plate, and that's where you'll stop your pad on your edge, and then that'll ensure that you're getting the edge detail done. So arm speed, pad flatness, dealing with edges. If you work with those things, you can get a really great result. Even if you take jacked up paint, you did the yellow pad with perfect finish, you're not going to mess anything up, and you use a dual action polisher like this, and you're going to accomplish quite a bit of quite a decent result without going crazy. So let's keep going. So there's no real 50-50 on this car shots because you can't see anything, man. It's very, very minor. I'm really pleased with how decent this thing, especially with the dealer prepped it and everything, or the Tesla. Well, I guess it's not a dealer, but the Tesla delivery center. As you get more proficient, you can speed up and do some scrubbing and stuff like that, like I'm doing here. But in the beginning, if you just want to stay simple, just keep that slow speed. The slower you go, the better you're going to do. You can get a really great result. So what I'm going to do now, I've made several sets of passes. I'm going to blow out my pad and I normally go outside to do this, but let me just show you the gist of it here while we're inside. And I'll set up my Tornador out in the doorway. So I'm going to just take my pad. One of the really nice things of perfect finish is it doesn't make a huge mess. And so we'll just keep rolling through that whole process on the whole car. What we're going to try to do is Mike's going to capture some B-roll, and I'll probably do some voiceover of showing you some different problem areas as we work through the car and showing me switching machines. Obviously, this is the easiest part to polish. It's the easiest to see what you're doing. It's the easiest to make sure you're keeping yourself organized. I'd encourage you, don't jump around the car. Do section after section. Even now, I did this, and I'm kind of confusing myself. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of where you've been and where you're headed. And I'm telling you, new car, old car, brand new off the showroom, it almost always needs this. It's just a question of what level of protection or what level of correction does it need. So all this darn horror story stuff, this is why I rebel against regular conversation. This paint is fantastic. I mean, I'm sure there's some little funky spots. There's probably gonna be some runs and some things in the paint, but and maybe I just got a good one, and maybe it's white, and maybe, but whatever. I didn't get anything special, and this paint is great. I mean, even after deconning and everything, there's quite a bit of pitting in the paint. The orange peel is quite a bit less than on other cars that that I have. Certainly BMW has a lot more orange peel, and Porsche has more orange peel. But I'll be sure to give you an assessment after I'm done, after I get through the whole thing. But this paint, as of right now, is pretty darn fantastic. I wouldn't say it's hard or soft, it's just kind of normal. And even after deconning it, all I needed to do was a single step, and it looks freaking fantastic. So that's good news. Okay, let's set up to do glass. So I'm going to aggressively wipe the glass down first, and we'll talk about glass, because it's obviously a subject in question since this car is like 50% glass. You could probably get away with not messing with it, but I always like to polish it. Now, there's correcting glass and then there's polishing glass, two totally different things. Glass is much, much harder than clear coat, doesn't correct the same. It takes many, many, many hours to get anything done, and you probably will never correct what you think you wanted. You won't be able to get it to the point to where you wanted it, so you're usually better off replacing it. But if you do need to correct glass, this is how you do it. Use a rayon pad. So this is a much stiffer, much harder, much harsher pad. So these are rayon pads, very thin, so you get direct torque right into the pad. It doesn't wobble or squabble. And this is pretty much the standard Carpo Series glass. That's really not fun to work with. It doesn't wipe off very easily. You really want to set up a water bottle so you can spray it, spritz it. I learned this from Mike Phillips at Auto Geek. The way to polish glass is use the rayon pad, high speed, high torque. You're probably better off using a rotary if you can get your hands on one, or at least you probably at least want a direct drive type, a forced rotation polisher. And you're going to want to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of product and a lot of elbow grease to get not a lot done. So I don't correct glass. I just buy new glass if I had to. So if you have deep etching from your wiper blades, you end up with problems. You end up with a problem that you can't really fix. The way that I'm going to polish glass is I'm going to take a microfiber cutting pad and a polish like Cut Max, which is nice to work with. So a compound, a relatively aggressive compound, and I'm going to polish large sections rather quickly, because really what I'm doing is cleaning it. I'm not really polishing it. And so if you end up with some water spotting that isn't coming off from a water spot remover or or white vinegar or some distilled white vinegar, then one way to clean it up is to polish it. And I noticed when I was washing the car, I can't really see it in here, but I noticed all kinds of little water etching and stuff like that, little water spots, maybe they're not etched. And so I'm just going to clean up the glass. It'll also help me get a better bond with my sealant that I'm going to put on the glass afterwards. And I always should wait to do this until I get the windows tinted, but I get impatient and I do this. So let me show you how I go through this and get it done. So since we're talking about here, I like to polish the glass with the Rupes, but just because I haven't shown you this machine yet, it is nice to not have to deal with the cord when you're up on the roof there. But the Rupes does have quite a bit more torque. Since I'm not really correcting, I'm not super concerned, but this is how you would prime a microfiber pad. You can't prime a microfiber pad on the fly. The reason for that is you have all these fibers, so you don't want dry fibers, you want lubricated fibers, and you want to blow out microfiber pads more because they will remove more clear coat. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to use a little bit more polish than I normally do because I'm going to do a little bit bigger area. And we're going to go up on the roof. So highest speed, you can move faster. Again, I'm just cleaning up. Three passes ought to do it. I don't really have to worry too much about blowing out my pad unless you're got a lot of dirt. I'm not even worried about wiping it off. I'm just do big sections at a time and roll through it. the Rupes is definitely a better candidate to polish this because you want high speed, high torque, you want to roll. But that's how we do it. So I'll do the whole, I'll do the sides, I'll do this, the camera B-pillar here, I'll do the rears, I'll do this little thing, I'll do the whole back section, the whole windshield. I'll figure out how to put the wipers in service position, and that's how we'll do it. And again, all that's doing is getting anything like, let's call it a deep cleaning. It's really what you're doing to the glass. And then we'll talk about sealing it later. But that's part of the polishing step that I like to do to get my glass looking really sharp, clean, new, fresh, ready to seal. Okay, polishing is done. I ended up doing 98% of the car with a single step, a perfect finish, yellow pad. In fact, there were so few imperfections that I can kind of point them out. There was some pigtail sanding here. For whatever reason, they seem to have a difficulty with this section, this little curve right here, because there was another little sanding mark right here because there's a little nib. There's a little nib here. So 1, 2, 3. The deck lid needed to be compounded because I could see it a little bit better. The doors had some little toweling marks, but the other thing I've noticed is that the paint is pretty prone to chipping. I already have quite a few chips down here on where the door meets the rear quarter panel. But in general, it seems very clear to me. I don't think everybody's making it up that Tesla paint is not good, but I think that they must have made some remarkable changes in 2021 since this is the newest version of the car. I mean, arguably some of the best paint condition right from the dealer, if you will. I guess this would be from Tesla, from the factory store. Arguably some of the best condition paint, even with the dealer prepping it, of any car I've ever owned. Certainly better than Porsche, certainly better than BMW. Again, right off of the showroom floor, if you will. And so the paint I found to be relatively soft, I guess you could say, sort of medium to soft. Most of the little imperfections and toweling marks from the dealer prep and from my decon came out with, again, 3 or 4 passes with the yellow pad. And so I did break out microfiber cutting pad, which I showed you in the beginning, and digest car correction compound on these sanding areas here. I did break it out here, and I used it on the door on a couple little spots, mainly with the Nano. And so I didn't micromanage this. I would call this, I'd say 90%, 92%, if you're looking for an exact number, something like that. The glass and trim, everything else came out great. Polishing the glass, I think, is a must if you want it to look good. So I think you really do want to polish especially the roof glass, get any little water spots and things like that out. Again, polishing glass is about cleaning it, not so much correcting it. So yeah, we're going to get into the coating process, and that's it. I mean, the car came out fantastic. I mean, you can see it. It looks good. Now, cars always look good on camera, but yeah, I'm pleased. I'm really surprised at how well it's come out. I think that once I get it lowered and wheels and like rear splitter and rear side splitters or whatever those things are called, front lip and stuff like that, I think it's going to really look good. Anyway, thanks for watching this one. Next episode will be all of the final stuff, all the coating and glass treatment for the exterior, and then we'll get into the interior stuff as well. I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with the interior vinyl, but we're going to figure that out as well. And then after I'm done with this whole process, you can check out the video I'm going to make, which is talking about build quality and panel gaps and all of that stuff. I wanted to wait to do that until I spent some time. I don't know, 10, 12 hours into touching the car. I want to get into the interior and clean that up, and so that way I can make an assessment and give you an obsessed person's perspective of the 2021 Model 3 build quality. So we'll get into that. Also, make sure to go to obsessedgarage.com. Check out our garage giveaway. If you're watching this video sometime in early 2021, our garage giveaway ends January 31st, where I'm going to build somebody's garage just like this. And so make sure to go check out that page. Go to the page, or go to obsessedgarage.com, click on the main banner, and buy one of the things in that section of the store. And I'm going to pick somebody in a few days to frickin' change their life. It's going to be awesome. So thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.